Edition. That's right. It's Monday. Should be a fun one. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Of course, we could always go down the political route and talk about what happened this weekend, but I will maybe get to that a little bit later on. I was talking with Larry over the weekend. He's like, yeah, I got an interesting topic I'd like to discuss with you. I was like, all right, let's do it. So we arranged to have Larry come on the program today. We're going to discuss something that is, well, I guess near and dear to many of our hearts. As we know, many of these, I think most of us agree that most politicians are lying, they're cheating, they're just taking advantage of the population. They will pass laws that benefit themselves. For the most part, there might be a few good people out there, but for the most part, you're going to get people that are really just trying to take advantage of the system and make themselves a lot more money. Just look at how much money they went into office with, and now how much they have coming out. So our topic is going to be this one right here. I believe I have it full screen. There it is. All right. Sorry, we're switching some stuff around. But here is the topic du jour. If you can't beat them, join them, with Dr. Larry Jacobson. And I wanted to have something that combined trading with kind of politicians, and you see them all lined up there telling us what to do. Well, let's just get on with it. So let's talk to Mr. Larry Jacobson. How you doing, Larry?
Good, Merlin. So yeah, we have some very interesting things to share today. And it all started with something I came across last week, and I figured, why not share it? Your audience is loyal, and this way, give them something new that they have a chance to play with. And as it says, can't beat them, join them. So I'm very excited to talk this topic over with you, because I was surprised you never even heard of it. So this is good timing.
Yeah, well, the last couple of weeks I've been kind of separating myself from the market, just not from the market, but from the media side of the market. So walk me through the basics of this. So right now there's a system set up where if you and I are caught engaging in insider trading, we could go to jail for it, right? It's just don't do it, don't get caught. Yeah, if you do, don't get caught, but it's bad news for us. However, if I'm a politician, if I'm someone over in the Senate, House of Representatives, it is still legal, to my understanding, to be trading off insider information, correct?
Yes, there's actually an act, believe it or not, that's in place right now. It's called the STOP Act, and it's an acronym for Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge.
Right.
It was implemented in 2012, and basically what it does is requires congressional members and their spouses to disclose trades over $1,000 within 45 days of the time of purchase. And guess what? If they violate this rule, it's a $200 fine. Ooh, that's very, very detrimental to them, and probably is deterring a ton of them from doing it, don't you think?
$200? Come on. It reminds me, I went over this on Thursday's show. I was like, if I get caught shoplifting as Merlin, I could get busted, maybe even go to jail and pay a big old fine. But what you're saying is basically if the cop does catch me, and let's say the Snickers bar is worth $2. Actually, let's make it the price of what it was at Las Vegas airport this weekend. A Snickers bar was $6.99. $6.90 for a Snickers bar. If I were to steal that and get arrested, okay, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars in litigation and fines. But if the cops showed up and fined me, let's say 10 cents, I'm going to go steal that candy bar every time I'm in Las Vegas. Every single time. And that's basically what you're saying. It's like, I could make a multi-million-dollar transaction. I could buy Apple shares. I could totally front-run news, get caught with that, not disclose to anybody, and they catch me, go, here's $200 fine. That's pathetic.
Absolutely. So what I want to share with everybody is that there's, believe it or not, a new act being proposed. And this is where really timely, I think, comes in, that on July 24th, this act is going to go to Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee for markup. It's called, believe it or not, ready? The Ethics Act. Now, the acronym is the Ending Trading and Holdings in Congress Stock. So basically, this is what it's designed to do, and then I'm going to take you to the website, because there's actually a website here, but it's a little bit more aggressive than anything they've done before, so it'll be interesting to see if it gets passed, but that won't matter in this discussion, because we're going to look at, if you can't beat them, join them. But here are the 4 things that this act is proposing. 1, if passed, it'll require all members of Congress, their spouses, and children to divest from their assets as of 2027. So that's kind of interesting. They're basically going after children too and saying, yeah, no, you can no longer hold those stocks anymore. But here's the big news. It will also ban lawmakers from trading stocks for 90 days after the bill becomes law. So they want to be able to trade stocks. But here's where the penalty comes in. It's better than nothing, right?
I don't know. I'll hold on a second. You say it's better than nothing. I don't really know if it is. It doesn't sound like it's. You're going to ban me for what, 60 days, 90 days. But what's the enforcement side of this? Who's watching this? That to me, that's the bad part.
Well, but here's the law that they're putting in place. If a lawmaker's caught doing this, they're either going to give up their monthly salary or 10% of the value of the asset, whichever is bigger. So that's kind of interesting.
If they're
That
caught, if they're caught. So I was told years ago that the regulatory agencies, including FINRA, the SEC, et cetera, they have a list of all the executives of the major corporations. So let's say you are, I don't know, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, right? And
Yep.
they tell, this is what I was told, that they have the information on Jensen Huang, all the people that he knows, his gym member people, the people that he, goes local coffee, the people he talks to, they have access to all of those people, and they're tracking all those transactions to make sure that he's not disclosing, insider information on those individuals and allowing them to make a bunch of money off it. To which I cry, absolute BS. There's no way that you're going to be tracking that many things. Okay,
Right.
that's CEOs, etc. Now you got politicians, which are shady by nature. I mean, there's even coming some laughter coming in the chat here about that as well. Like ethics and politics, like come on, that's oil and water.
That's why I think it's the funniest thing about the act name. But the last thing they're actually proposing is the act will require divestment of assets, even if put in a blind trust. So I'm not saying anything about acceptance of it. I'm just saying that yet again, there's another bill going to the floor, and I'm going to share my screen if that's okay, Merlin. And I want to show you the website because there is a website here, and I think it'd be fun to kind of bring this up and show it to you. Here we go, and boom. So let me know when you can see it.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to put this over here. So it was Merkley from Oregon that is really about doing this. I'm going to get my picture out of the way here too so it doesn't block anything. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Senators, representatives unveil bipartisan legislation to end corrupt stock trading activities by members of Congress. So I love some of the quotes, though, that was said. This is my favorite. Congressional stock trading is deeply corrupt. We are elected to serve the public, not our portfolios, and no member should vote on bills biased by the character of their holdings, says Merkley,
Agreed.
the Ethics Act lead sponsor. So there are some people in Congress as well that are kind of fed up with all of this. So that's not really the story here. But I wanted to start off by at least sharing with everybody that this is expected. No one's anticipating it changing. So here's the thing I really want to share with everybody. Okay, there are two exchange traded funds that have recently been released that track the different sides of the aisle. This is what I want to share with the viewers here. So the first one is called NANC, N-A-N-C. So I'm going to bring this up here so you can take a look at it. So let's see if I can just get this over the corner. So it's Unusual Whales, Subversive Democratic Trading, ETF. So right now, there's an ETF that you can trade that is actually beating the market right now. So let's think about it. Yeah, exactly. All these people with their insider trading are buying stocks and they're now being tracked with an ETF. But what I'll tell you I found to be very interesting is number one, you can come here, but I want to do a little digging in other places as well. But if you scroll down here, okay, and you look at it, here are the top 10 holdings in the Democratic portfolio. NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple. So basically it's the magnificent seven, so to speak, right? So we know that that's happening. But I wanted to get a little deeper into this because you and I often talk about it. Well, if you want to invite me on, we can do our typical election show that we do. Yeah. But you and I always will do a show where we say, if this candidate wins, what do we think are going to be the sectors and industries that really benefit?
Right.
But what I did was I took it a step further and I went to Morningstar. Okay, so you can go right to Market Watch. They actually have it right now. So this portfolio is at $37.50. But when I come here and I look at it, this is what interested me. Okay, if you go to the portfolio tab, and what I'm doing is bringing up the free site. So if you want to look at this, whoever's watching, don't go through Google, just type morningstar.com. Otherwise, they're going to take you to the paid site. But this is what's fascinating. 98% of this ETF is equities. in large growth stocks. But when I scroll down, this is what I thought you'd find interesting. What are they actually investing in from sector perspective? So they are heavily into technology on this Democratic ETF.
No surprise there.
No, a little bit of communications and consumer cyclicals. So it's interesting to kind of see the mindset of what maybe they're giving us a lot of great information by coming in and telling us which sectors each different, party is really looking at. And if you scroll a little lower, it says there is 716 stocks, and again, gives you the weighting. Microsoft and NVIDIA make up 25% of this ETF. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
When you think about 716 stocks. So guess what? I just simply went over to TradingView, and there it is. So look at this growth going back to November. Straight up, because we know the technology has been going straight up. And I even have my little watches called Congress now. And we can see here this growth from November. And what you always like to do is I'll do here. You just come in and let's see what that growth would have been. Right? So let's get rid of this from.
Oh, that's from the low. So I did it from January 1st.
Oh, you did?
Well,
okay.
So here, I'll run the numbers for everybody. So the S&P 500 from January 1st is up 17.94%. The irony is that Nancy Pelosi is the reason that has NANC. So you got NANC is the symbol for this one. It's up 22.9%. So it's beating the S&P by 5%. Awesome. I also did the Republican one here, which you guys can bring that one if you want. And guess who that's named after, everybody? Who's the Republican one named after? That's pretty funny. Cruz. It's KRUZ. And that one's only up 11.74%. So the Republicans clearly need to worry about their portfolio allocations. Don't follow the Republicans, apparently.
Well, but when you see the breakdown, this is what's pretty fascinating about it. And I figured this would be a great topic for you and I to kind of talk about. But if you go back to the low in November and do the same thing with the S&P, it'd be interesting to see. Look at this Democratic, highly technology-based ETF. It's up 45%, bro.
Yeah, great.
Look at that, 45%. Now let's look at like you said, the Republicans' Cruz. So I'm going to go back here. And this is why I figured you would find this interesting. I didn't even know these
I think it's really funny, the names they put on them. So you got obviously Nancy Pelosi and you got Ted Cruz. It's really ironic.
And there you go. There are their pictures right there, exactly what they did. But here's where we can take a look and see, well, how are they differing? Well, let's look at the top 10 holdings on Cruz and notice not as much technology, banking, comfort systems, Arista Networks. There's one you and I've talked about many times. ANET, Texas Instruments. So it's fascinating to say, do they have the reach in this party to go after some of the more technology sectors as the Republicans do that are backing a whole different platform? So what I did was I went to Cruz here in Morningstar, and let's take a look at the difference here. Still highly stock, but they're more in building large cap. They're not as much growth as the Democratic ETF is. And now look at the actual sectors. They're in industrials. They're in financial services. They're in energy. So Merlin, this might be a little bit of a foreshadow into what might be the platform of these parties and what they're looking to keep supporting based upon how these congressional people are investing money in these things right now. I figured you'd find this fascinating.
Yeah, Margaret says, so you make more money if you are less honest. Well, I don't know, Margaret, if I would say that one side of the aisle is more honest than the other. I think they're both equally corrupt and full of lies, so I'm not going to take that stance. But I think what Larry just said is very interesting because and this is actually a question that came in. Let me real quickly give some props out here to Michael G, because Michael sent in this question, and this was it. He says, what stocks will do well under Trump 2.0? Now, I'm not going to answer that today because I want to do a show with Larry on this one, but if you're wondering, what might benefit under a specific administration, whether it doesn't matter who the leader is of president, but just a Democrat or Republican control, you could probably get some pretty good ideas, as Larry is showing you here, by looking at those allocations. I think that might be very telling because you can kind of see how things are split up. Obviously, from what he's showing you here under the cruise, this is cruise.
It's cruise.
You can probably make a good assessment that technology, industrials, and financial services will most likely be the biggest benefactor under a Republican administration. And if we look at other ones, the Democrat one may shift here, but I think it is a nice way to go and look. Yeah, here you go.
Here's Nance.
Oh, so 48% is in technology. That is very heavily weighted. You got consumer cyclicals and communication services here. So, what we'll probably do when Larry and I do this show as we get closer to the election, because I still think we have a long way to go. And as you guys experienced over the weekend, anything can happen. And I mean anything. That was a pretty alarming situation on Saturday, and who knows what could happen by the ultimate election day. We don't know who will be the candidates at this point. We think we know, but we may not know at that time. So I think we'll probably do a spreadsheet. I'll put a spreadsheet together and show kind of the delta between these two and where, if one's elected, what's the difference? So if we go today to this current administration under the Democrats, we can see basically the major allocations there and how they're allocated. Where is the biggest transition part going to be? For example, it looked like industrials was a major part of the Republican side. It's not a big part of the Democrat side at all. There's a 10% separation there between the two. So that may be a bigger factor. And again, it's speculative. This is nothing definitive. It's really just saying there's the probability, and if I can shift probability a little bit in my favor, then so be it. So yeah, Larry's putting him
on the right-hand side is Cruz. On the left-hand side is Nance.
Yeah, let's
so now you can see them side by side.
Yeah, that's cool. That's going to try to put them together. Wouldn't surprise me if both are not in the race anymore. Yeah, Steve. I mentioned I've been asked this many times at different events. Larry and I was fortunate enough to actually get to work with Larry at an event with Todd and Darren Komodo, which was a lot of fun last weekend. I think it was last weekend. And it's one of the questions. What's going to happen with this year? And my forecast or the remainder of the year is I don't have any real dog in the fight for any direction. I do expect there to be a tremendous amount of volatility. If that shot had been not where it was on President Trump, these markets would have gone chaotic today. And I think that volatility will continue on over the next few months. And, it's senseless violence, that type of thing should not happen. Doesn't matter what your disdain is for somebody. That's no place that shouldn't have happened. So anyway.
I'll give you an example. Look at defensive. So a lot more money heading into defensive than it is on the Democratic side. So you can definitely see there's some things that they share, but other things they don't.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't. Actually, they look fairly similar, actually. Consumer defense, is that what you're looking at? Consumer defense is 4.3 under Cruz, Nancy, and 5.62. Where do we see a big separation? What's some
utilities? Look at utilities.
Yeah, utilities are both pretty low. But it just goes, so under the Republicans, it would jump to 2.3% investment versus 0.59 for the Democrats. So that's not a big one. Really, the technology one is just alarming how big that is. Alarming was huge. And then what's the
financial services?
Yeah, and industrials. Financial services and industrials are your biggest changes there.
Yep. So when you look at the two charts, because that's another thing I did here, I'm just going to stick this back in here so we can find if we need to talk about it. If you come in here right now and you basically just come up and put Cruz.
Good question. I think I know the answer, but Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but Big Eb says, how or who is making these allocations for each of these? I think it's based off of the disclosed statements of the Democrats in their portfolio positions, how they are allocated, and they're using that as the proxy.
Yeah, Unusual Whales, what they're doing in their pitch here is saying, hey, you don't have to go through all these filings right now, all these disclosures, we'll do it for you. And there's actually an app I'm going to share after we finish this little segment. If you're interested in it, you can even see what they're investing in. The way that people are going and aggregating data right now, it gives you a little bit of an understanding. And so you look at Cruz, I don't think it had as much of a jump. Look how it's even choppier down here in November. But if we just do a comparison real quickly, since I did apple to apple, let's see here from the bottom of November, up here, they went up about 30%, where the Democratic portfolio went up 45%. So they're definitely in things that are a little less risky as far as technology right now. But the one thing we don't know is they're probably in a lot of AI-driven companies right now.
Yeah.
And I know, Merlin, we've talked about this, where we might see a little bubble happen. You know, a lot of people are going a little too fast into the AI trying to find that gem. And it kind of reminds me of when everyone started going crazy with the dot-coms back in the late 90s. And so to me, the time to have been buying is not now. It should have been a couple of years back when they were first starting to buzz this. I mean, we started talking about NVIDIA, you and I, all the way back in 17. So
No, it
there's
was earlier than that, Larry. It was
15,
15. Yeah, yeah.
2015 is when we started to first talk about NVIDIA. And so think about that. We are almost 10 years into this discussion, and people are now just going, NVIDIA, NVIDIA?
Yeah.
And they split 10 for 1. So you got to realize.
And Larry froze on me. Let's see if hopefully it's not my feed here, but Larry froze for real quick. Hopefully it'll pop back up here. Mark says, which side owns more defense-related stocks? That was the Republican side. Republican had 2.3 or 2.4%, and then the Democrats had 0.59. So significantly less on the Democrat side. Larry, I think you're frozen over there, buddy. I'm hoping we're still back to normal. Are we back to good? It may be in my whole feed.
Is this still a time you want to program? So I thought this would be interesting to show everybody. So we now start to look at Merlin trades. I did check. They do trade options, but liquidity is terrible. I'm not recommending anybody do options talk about Merlin without sharing. That's exactly
crazy. It just did a whole fast forward thing on you. All right, you back there, Larry?
I don't see myself in the chat, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Okay, that was weird. It delayed you, and then all of a sudden it caught up with you. So one other thing here, which is interesting, is Dave says, does that mean that there's a 30-day delay on the stock allocation or chart allocation? And this is a great point, because there is a delay between when these things have to be filed and when they're recorded. And, I used to look at a thing called SEC, I think it was called a 144 filing. And that's when any insider has to declare if they're selling positions. So I would go and look for the 144 filings, but come to realize that they were delayed by weeks, like several weeks, maybe months before it was actually reported. And I realized that it's not really giving me much of an advantage. So I'm pretty sure I've been hacked. I may have been hacked. Could be. I'm pretty sure that there is a big delay on when the Unusual Whales team is putting all this information together and getting it. But remember, most of these politicians aren't active trading, right? They're not out there day trading. These are positions that they're building up that are going to last months to years. So, yeah, there is most likely a big lag time there. All right, Larry, here you go.
I would also consider the fact of core strategy, right? Learning how to time this market when there are pullbacks in those right locations. That might be a time that they're going to be buying too. Can you see my screen now, Merlin? I have autopilot up.
Yep, I see your screen. So, Joe, the two ETFs are NANC. Let me just share that with everybody over here. NANC is the first one. That's the Nancy Pelosi or the Democrat one. And then you've got KRUZ is the Republican one, and there you go. And one thing to note here for everybody that might find these interesting, which I definitely do find them very interesting. The problem is volume, all right? So you don't have a lot of liquidity on these. Even today, which was a huge day for this ETF, like the fourth largest on record, was only 44,000 shares traded for Cruise. Now, interestingly, for me, is NANC, which has been a much better performer, today is already at 167,000. So the Nancy Pelosi one is doing a lot more volume, which is great from a liquidity perspective, and it's got better performance. So remember, this isn't about your political views here. If you're looking at making money, clearly the trend is that the Democrat portfolio is making more money, and that may change. That may change at any time, but right now the trend is the NANC is a much better performer than KRUZ. All right, Larry, let's go back to your screen. Invest like a politician.
I love this. How funny is this? So there's an actual app called Autopilot, and you can actually track not only politicians. So there's a Nancy Pelosi tracker. One of our more popular ones is her husband. Her husband's tracker is much more popular. You've got a Buffett tracker. You have a Bill Ackman tracker. You have a Michael Burry from The Big Short tracker. So some people who just want to know what they're holding right now, again, what Autopilot is doing is taking all their disclosures and they're starting to track their top holdings. So again, I'm just showing everybody here that for every 3 months, you can pay $30 to see how these politicians are trading. And that's of interest to you, great. So that's why Autopilot came up with their motto, if you can't beat them, join them. So I figured this is a great opportunity to kind of share that. A lot of us don't know really what's going on with this, but now hopefully your listeners, Merlin, have two different ETFs they can periodically look at. But what I really like, especially when you do the show towards the election, is going to be where are they more likely to be platform-wise putting their money and maybe want to do some sector rotation. And I know that when we did the show back in 2020, you and I were very bullish on solar at that time. There was a lot of talk about it. There was a lot of stocks that kind of popped during the 2021 period. And so this might be another opportunity to get ahead of the game and saying, is there a sector or two you might want to kind of take a look at before the election, and maybe you buy a little bit of the sector, see what happens.
Let me ask you, with this, it's similar to what, right now, something very popular in financial markets called mirror trading, right? Where you can follow a celebrity or some individual that has told you historically that, oh, they're doing really well. And I've learned not to trust that information anyway. You've been in this industry long enough and worked with enough traders that you'll, oh yeah, I'm doing so good. And you look at their statements, you're like, yeah, actually, you're really not. And they may not even show you all their statements. With this, I think it's a little bit different than mirror trading, right? Again, mirror trading, you can go sign up and follow other traders out there, which is fine, I guess, if you want to be lazy and trust that trader. This is a bit different because it's just kind of showing you what these policymakers are in, which I think is a much more powerful resource for you if it's true, transparent, and honest. Again, I have a lot of questions about the transparency and truthfulness of the disclosure of this type of information, but how might you position this? Or how might you use this yourself? Because you're much of a long-term value guy.
Right. What I find interesting to me is, if anything, I'm not looking specifically at stocks. I'm more interested in where they're investing sector-wise. So there may be an opportunity for me to look at a particular sector and then do my own analysis within a sector to see, are there any stocks that look like they could be undervalued right now? Because if they're having the conversations, if they're getting insider trading, if they're taking trades based on information they're learning about a company or an industry might be moving forward to, that could be of interest. But again, it would have to go through my filter, and I'd have to be really comfortable knowing it's a good company and it has the potential to do what it needs to do. So they, like I said, I don't even know if they're all in AI. I don't know what companies or what their reasoning is for it, to your point. I just know if we're starting to talk about NVIDIA and Microsoft, and we go back and look at the Nance one and seeing what the top 10 holdings are, they look like all the companies that are really pumping AI right now. Mm-hmm. So again, if you were to go back, and you and I talked about this, and I remember saying to you, I don't know if we were on a show and we did it, but I remember a couple of years ago, I was saying Meta, buy Meta. That's going to be a big one. Meta has exploded. And it was right after the whole kind of metaverse fell apart. And those are the times that I find are the most interesting, because the same thing happened all the way back in 2005 with Apple, in that, had you been smart enough to realize that there was saturation in the iPod, and Apple stock dropped by 50%, and then all of a sudden, a few months later, you had Steve Jobs introducing the iPhone, never looked back. But if you had known what to look for, you could have gotten in at a 50% discount to Apple and been able to ride that up over all these years. I think you had a Meta opportunity a couple of years back when all of a sudden there was that hiccup with the metaverse. And then after that, we started to hear about AI and the new initiatives. And if you go back, because I can't see your screen, but go look at Meta a couple of years ago, look at that major pullback in Meta and how much has it gone up since then?
Oh yeah, it's been a monumental run actually for Meta. I'll get close here, but it's not going to be exactly on. You know, it's roughly almost 400 from the dead lows, 470% from the dead lows back in 2022. Not a bad run. Not a bad run.
Yeah, that's what I said. So you're going to find these companies. There's nothing really wrong with the company per se. They have good valuations, but people are just afraid when there's these pullbacks. And you know, I haven't seen such a pullback yet in NVIDIA. Could be. But if you like it at this price, you'll like it better when it's lower. The big question is this a company that's going to continue to keep growing, innovating? And, who knew? I didn't back in 2015 when we first talked about it, that it was going to have this explosive growth that it did. I was just hoping they were going to make some money for the fact that they were going to be the premier chip maker of driverless cars.
Yeah, yeah, right.
That was,
So I would like to see it. I mean, this bill, this Ethics Act, which I find is an ironic name for it.
I did too.
Let's just say it's admirable. We have 535 congressional members. Well, you have 100 in the Senate and 435 in the House of Representatives. Okay, so let me get this straight. A bill's going through because a couple of people are mad as hell, and have probably listened to a lot of folks like me that are mad as hell about it, because I think it's disruptive to the progress and growth of America having these conflicts of interest where a politician will vote for a bill that passes so they can capitalize on the gain of those stocks. That to me is not what we should be doing as a country. But I've got 535 members that are going to be voting on this bill going through. And essentially what I would be voting on, let's say I'm one of these 535 congressional members, and this comes in front of me, and I now have to say yay or nay. And the gist of it, the summary is, I am going to vote yay or nay on a proposal that will significantly impact my ability to make money as an elected official. It would take away my gravy train, which is far more money than I would ever make just getting my salary. Do you
right.
really? I mean, why in the hell would I vote for this? I will deflect it and make it go away somehow, but I'm going to be secretly in the halls going, nay, nay, nay.
Well, great question. I think until the American people are fed up with it, and there's a threat of, if you don't vote yay, we're not going to reelect you. And I know that's a big dream of mine, but this is the problem. There is this perception that the people have control. And until that changes, they don't. So this is why you'll never get some of these things to pass until the next generation that has more ethical, background. They're maybe wanting to do things for better purposes. But you know my standing, Merlin. You know how I feel about the baby boomers. And I'm a baby.
You are a boomer.
It's going to come down in history as this was the most corrupt generation there ever was. Now, it could be more in the future, but what I see here, and it's very interesting timing, and I'm a big historian, but I have been saying to you probably for 2 years, this is 1968. Remember, we've been talking about this. I said, this is the baton being handed from the boomers to the millennials. And notice what's starting to happen. Like in 68, you had assassination attempts, you had all this craziness going on in the world, and here we are again. So everything is cyclical. I really believe that in my heart. It's been more than 50 years, and right now we're seeing a generational shift. And in what universe is it okay to let people get fired because they're in their 60s, but these congressional people are all but dead on the floor of the congressional floor,
yeah, right.
Still able to vote? And at least I guess there's somebody holding the hand when they push the button. So I just have a belief that if we really want things to change, then we, the people, have to force the change.
Yeah.
Because it come from within. That's just my own.
No, I'm with you, and I think Big Eb kind of says it right. I don't trust them to vote for it, and it's not. Look, I come across maybe as anti-politician. I'm not. I know there's some good people out there that, for the most part, if you look at the spectrum of 100 being perfect, there's not one of them that's 100%. Not one. No way. But maybe they're in the 80, 75%. I'll take that all day. Considering it seems like over the years I've seen some politicians that in the morality category, like in the lower 10, 15% area, I can't imagine them wanting to vote on it, even the good ones. So Big Eb says they should put the bill as a choice on the national election so we, the people, could vote on it. Absolutely, and I guarantee, I can't guarantee, but I'm pretty sure it would pass with flying colors, because I think that there's no real drawback to you and I voting that bill through. I don't think there's anything that would be detrimental to us. There wouldn't be, maybe certain stocks that you're holding because you followed the Pelosi portfolio or the Cruz portfolio might have take a bit of a hit because of that. But I think it would get us back to a more fair, honest system, which is where we should be. And ultimately, that will probably lead to better productivity and growth for the United States as a whole, as opposed to specific individuals. So, yeah, I'm all for it. The question is, how do we do that?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if we want to go a step further, this or that. And I would simply say, and I've been believing this for many years, you get a choice. Keep the money you made while you're in office, and you don't get a pension, but you don't get both.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the most corrupt of everything, is that people are scared about their own retirement, and there you have people getting a guaranteed paycheck. If this was a company, they would have their board of directors and shareholders screaming right now.
Yeah.
But we are. We are the shareholders of the United States of America. We just don't do anything. And we allow these CEOs, these congressional people, to continue the bad behavior. I mean, let's face it. You and I talk about it. We go back to 2008, one person goes to prison.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous already. So I love this idea, but the purpose of bringing this on was more of interest in there's now tools that are now available to the common people that can see what they're doing, make decisions, be interested in maybe getting a head start over most people. Because now, if you know what sectors might be where they're most invested, maybe you want to take a look at those particular sectors, and on big pullbacks, jump in, because you know that's the party that's going to get elected is going to be promoting those. And maybe in off years, when the parties are not in power, that's where you tend to see most things. But I think this balance, because it always tends to be a balance. There's been very few times where both branches have been completely one party. That's the best time to get things through. But most of the time, it's stalemate, unless something happens with the American people that force that change.
Right.
And I don't think we have the leaders anymore that we did back in the 60s that really took on very difficult topics and got them through. Those days are gone. But that was the prior generation.
Yeah.
Like I said.
There's been some people commenting that, the bill may come to the floor, but then they'll say, oh, well, paragraph 7, column 4, line 17, we don't like that, so I'm not going to vote on that. They'll always make some little excuse here. And Margaret, I actually like what you said here. I'm going to Lisa, I almost want to twist this one just a little bit. It's this asking these politicians to vote in favor of this bill would be kind of like asking a homeless person to vote to make homelessness illegal. I think that's a very interesting parallel, right? Because no homeless person go, wait, I'm going to vote to make it illegal for me to sleep wherever I want, anytime I want. No way. Never going to do it. Forget it. Oh, interesting times, guys. Very interesting times. And again, Larry, thank you for bringing those to my attention. I have not followed them. And, interesting, if you look over here at the charts, let's go look up NANC. These aren't new. I mean, these have been here over a year. I did not know. I mean, I think I've heard about them, but I never looked it up. But this is the Nancy Pelosi one here, or I always say Nancy Pelosi just because it says NANC on it. Sorry, it's not hers specifically. It's all the Democrat traders.
Well, yes, but it's interesting that in that Market Watch article, they did use Nancy Pelosi and Ted Cruz's faces. So that
did they? Yeah, okay.
That kind of tells you that Unusual Whales probably found that humorous and said, okay, let's kind of put the pinnacle of what we know in those two parties. And yeah, I think it's hilarious.
I absolutely. It started back in first trading day was February 7th of 2023. And I'm pretty sure Cruz is the same day because he probably made sure to release those both at the same time. Yep, same time. All right. Well, cool. I'm glad you brought that piece to our attention. That's always good stuff. Anything else market-wise you find interesting? Stuff that you got on your plate right now?
Again, I'm just kind of being cautious, looking. I'm always that person that's kind of having a plan. That's just the way I am. So I'm very interested looking at the companies that are kind of leading the AI movement right now, having been burnt back in the tech bubble. One of those idiots that got caught with Cisco at a very high price. And a lot of these companies aren't even around anymore. I love when you do that, when you talk about your own cryptocurrencies. It's just going to be an interesting time because at this point right now, everybody's diving in to own AI.
Yep.
But they haven't really proven to us yet how this is going to benefit business. See, in my world, the internet changed. There was an actual benefit to all of us having the internet with that kind of technology. It made things faster. You could do things you couldn't do before. I don't get that with AI right now. I get you could do cool little graphic things, but they haven't shown me the true utility yet of how AI is going to change the business world and make it better. All we know is everybody's trying to get there first. So be careful as you start to invest in things. Don't chase these prices right now. Wait for good pullbacks where you'd want to own a stock and you're owning it for the right reason. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So I'm just, even with my trading, not even long-term investing, I'm waiting for a nice pullback. And I think we're going to get something. The markets keep inching higher and higher, but I'm not seeing the commitment we've seen in the past. And part of that could be also they're going to wait to see what happens at the end of September. I think we're now saying maybe there's going to be a rate cut, in September at the Fed. So those of you who want to continue in your auctions, Bill Addis does a great job of really explaining how, at least at this point, you can still make about 4.5% on your money right now. Pretty cool. Why not? I also like telling my students, Merlin, I think we've discussed it, Capital One's 360 savings account is paying 4.25% on your money. So again, these are safer ways to have your money grow if you're not looking for this big growth, but I'm not seeing it like I've seen it before where you're getting these big moves. I think we saw this weekend, there was a reason for it. I think you're going to get a lot of volatility, but what comes up, as we know, fast tends to come down even faster. So I would be very careful in how you commit money right now. I'm just kind of waiting for pullbacks. And honestly, as an option trader, I'm just waiting to stick my put flag in the dirt and be able to look for making a lot of money to the downside. Because at some point it's going to happen. I just don't see this being sustainable. And if you looked at some of the earnings today, like BlackRock and Goldman Sachs, they beat earnings, but they didn't kill it.
Yeah.
So slightly beat the earnings. Okay. But where are they putting the bar right now? So there's just a lot of misinformation. So that's probably my best way of explaining how I would approach it right now. I'm just optimistically cautious with a plan if I see something that I can take advantage of.
Do you, Margaret, want to know what kind of dividend you're looking for? Does that factor into it? Because I know you've presented several different companies here. Like, I like this one for this reason. And you kind of run through different gamut of criteria to look for. And I don't recall dividends being a factor for you.
No, if I'm going to do a dividend play, honestly, I would rather go to a site where I can rank them. I would either be in preferred stock. That's a way to get the dividends without having to have a lot of risk in the stocks, or find stocks that might be paying a lot more in dividends. So it's a great question because it comes down to what I teach a lot in Strategic Investor. It's really about what is your purpose for your investing? Are you doing it for growth or are you doing it for safety? If you're doing it for safety, then I don't want to be in something that's very dividend oriented or things that don't really make a large rate of return. That's great for a very conservative, safe trader. But if I'm going to go for growth, I want to be in the stocks because the potential is much better and the dividend is just kind of an extra little cherry on top. But again, it's how long you're going to hold the stock. Warren Buffett has held stock since the 80s, even some earlier than that. So he's getting that consistent dividend, but look at the amount of shares he's probably invested in there.
Yeah.
So it's a great question. It's just you got to kind of sit back and say what makes the most sense for you and your portfolio right now.
Nice. What's on your schedule? Where are you teaching? I know you've got your regular online sessions, but I'm sure many of our viewers like to know where I can find out more information about you. So what's your schedule look like?
Yeah, I'm going to see you in about a week and a half. I'm off to Irvine to teach the options class. So I'm pretty excited about that.
When do you come out here?
I start teaching on the 27th. So I will see about a little over a week. Yeah, I'm coming back out, spending a week there since I moved out to the Midwest, loving it out here.
How is it hot there? Are you in the hundreds?
It's hotter than it's been, but no.
Okay.
We basically had some heat. Where we get burnt is in the humidity. So living in California as long as I did, I had to get used to the humidity again. But I got to tell you, it's been like we had a couple of hot days, but for the most part, it's been in the 80s. It's been hotter on the West Coast, and now the East Coast is getting slammed.
Yeah.
So kind of messing with us. We're getting some storms. Like I got some pretty amazing thunderstorms last night. And in California, you don't really hear them very often. So I'm kind of enjoying that. And the lightning is like serious.
I wish I could have recorded what happened up in Vegas. So I was in Vegas with a friend of mine, and we went to the Summer League basketball games at Thomas and Mack Center. And when we went over there, the guy was like, oh, yeah, there might be some thunderstorms later. And I'm like, it's 115 degrees out here. Where are you getting a thunderstorm in this? Sure enough, we leave. It's 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. And you see off in the distance, it's all cloudy. The raindrops are massive. It's like tropical almost raindrops. And we see this lightning flash off in the distance, and everyone's like, whoa, that was a big one. And all of a sudden, it was the loudest thunderclap I've ever heard. I literally jumped in the air freaking out about it. It was so loud. So yeah, I love a good thunderstorm, but man, that was a little bit too much for me. One big thunderclap, man, I'm running for cover.
Hey, that's what it's like out here, but I love it. I'm telling you, it's a different lifestyle that I'm really kind of enjoying. It's slower. And having lived in California for almost 35 years, it's nice change of pace, and I get to close to family on the East Coast. I get to come back to the West Coast. So it's a bit of the best of both worlds. So,
Larry moved to the Midwest and he's gained 67 pounds in 3 months.
no.
I know. I'm just messing with you, Larry. I know Larry's on a fit. It took him to leave California to all of a sudden start exercising and doing fitness and eating right. It's like, wow, okay, right on. Hey, stay out there if it's good for you, buddy. It's good for you.
And of course, I got the focus class. Tomorrow I'm going to be teaching my focus students trading weekly options, a whole day class. So that's been going well. I'm really enjoying that. I think it's a lot of fun. I really love helping the students. And so that's pretty much been my world, teaching. Nice. Dealing with some curriculum changes and getting to just kind of spend a little more time really studying markets. And now I have time to kind of, because I will tell you, one of the biggest changes, Merlin, I do love is being on the Eastern Standard Time, because I don't have to get up at the crack of 5 anymore. Right now, I can get up at 7:30. I still have time to do research. I'm loving that the market's open at 9:30 out here.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a trade-off, brother, because I hate mornings as well, which is why I love trading, because you can trade all kinds of day. However, I have 3 words for you which would make me never want to move to the East Coast. Monday Night Football. Yeah, I'm not watching a football game at 1 in the morning. Are you crazy? Come on, no way. I'm staying out here in California for my Monday Night Football games. That's it. That's what's causing me to live out here in California.
Well, there are those trade-offs, but anyway, I like sleeping a little bit later. I think it's the reason why weight's coming off. I'm not exhausted all the time. Good. So it's been fun coming on and sharing this. If I find any things like this again, I don't see what's going on. If they're saying yes in the chat, I'll keep looking for these kind of little gems that are out, because they're definitely out there. A lot of people don't know where to look for them or what they're doing. So hopefully if some of you got some value out of that, it makes me happy. So Merlin and I do a lot of talking. And when I can come on here and share information, even especially he doesn't know, because it's very hard to stump Merlin, that it makes me extremely happy.
Yeah, good. Well, I look forward to the next stumping, Larry. So thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time today. Good luck. I heard your new Vikings logo looks pretty good. So you're on a winning path this season already. So look forward to having you back on soon, my friend.
See you soon, Merlin. Take care.
Guys, that was Larry Jacobson from Indiana. People want to know, where's he at? He's in Indiana. He moved out there. It's been a while now. He's enjoying it over there in Indiana. It's going good, apparently. All right, let me continue on with at least what's going on market-wise. Let me run through that. Bottom. We'll start at the bottom, work our way to the top here so I can get through these 12 or 8 markets here and wrap up in under 1 hour. And then I want to show you the Fed futures calendar because it looks pretty interesting. We talked about a shift happening if the CPI and PPI numbers looked okay. And we got it. All right, starting at the bottom. Crude oil. Down 0.36% today, but again, we're just stuck between those 2 yellow hamburger buns on my screen, so nothing to worry about there. 10-year bounced a little bit on today's session. Now it's coming back down in this current one, but we saw this. We're already in the new session for the 10-year bond. 4.23% is the yield on that one. Still the only number that matters. I don't care what this does to the economy. I don't care how it bothers people or benefits them. What I really care is we don't get below 4% because I don't want to owe Big Eb a beer. I need to finally gloat on a wager. Mike LaRusso has beaten me twice on wagers, and I think Bill Addis has lost 3 times, so I'm okay there. But it's against you guys I'm losing. All right, a dollar index. This one's very interesting. Again, I've had this line drawn on here since the second touch, right? When we were back here, as we came back down, I thought that might be the spot where we'll bounce off this one, and in fact, we did. Then we bounced off it 4 other times right here, and now we're back into it again. Remember, this is like chipping away at concrete. The more times it comes down and hits this level, the more likely it's going to break through. So I think we are at a very interesting crossroad for the dollar index. See how far the bounce is to the upside here. Do we make it back up to 105? Okay, that'd be fine. Do we make it to 106? That would change my narrative and talk track here. If we break this and we get down below this 103.88 line, there could be some big problems here for the market. So I will take a quick breather here for the ads to play for you guys. I'll stumble around. I don't even know what it actually looks like when the ads play for you on your end. But yeah, it's Marcus's nice zone on the Dixie. Yeah, and it's just been bouncing there. And again, the more time it does this, the more likely it's going to break down. So I've got kind of have a preemptive general idea where I think it might head down to. If we did break that 103.88 line, it looks like 102.66, which a lot of people going, it's only $1.22, not a lot of money. It's a percentage thing, and this is the value of your purchasing power relative to other currencies around the world. So that is a pretty big potential drop there if it does happen, and it could happen rather quickly. All right, moving up the top, we got the NASDAQ was up 0.29%. I say 0.29, it sounds nice, but at one point we were up much more than that. I will give you the actual numbers here. At one point we were up 1.33% for the NASDAQ and then finished just up 0.29. So definitely momentum is to the downside on this today. Even though you got that gain, the momentum at the end of the session pushed this thing down, and closing, even though it's higher, not looking very bullish going forward. You may actually be able to use this shooting star formation, which technically it's not a shooting star because it didn't break a high, it's not at a peak, but it still has the same psychology of momentum on today's candle, which would lead me to believe that tomorrow will most likely be a down day. Fourth place was the S&P, which is slightly better than that at 0.32%. Again, we're still in uncharted territory, set another all-time intraday high today. Podium time, we've got gold. Gold rolling right back up to the top of that yellow box we've had in place for months now. Again, keep your eye on it. If we do break that to the upside, you might see some pretty big move up for gold. 2,454 is that top line there, which right now we're at 2,428. So we've got about $26. So 1% gain could break that high for us, and that could happen at pretty much any time. No, not trading the NQ right now. If it happens tomorrow and it breaks down, I might, but I'm not in a trade on it right now, Margaret. Not currently, but I could definitely see entering that as a momentum trade. The Russell continues to defy all gravity here. This has been just one of the most colossal runs, and again, this is all money rotating from one market into another. 7.77% jackpot, triple sevens for the Nasdaq or for the Russell over the last 4 trading sessions. Pretty amazing. Again, where are we headed? Well, you got to zoom out the big picture here, look off to the left and see where do we think in this area of congestion it might head. And I don't see anything in this little area here that could potentially slow it down. So you really got to go look at the last origin of this move down, which was right there. So 2,267, which would be the next logical point for me where it might run to. So let me zoom out here so you can see it all. And now we have a dashed line at the top there, which represents where I think it's headed. So I think you still got more upside potentially for the Russell, even though it seems inconceivable with how quickly it's been moving, but there you go. Short the low on the NASDAQ is what you're suggesting. Lady, I'm saying that for me, my rule on a shooting star like that is if it opens up above that horizontal line I drew, if it opens up and then breaks down intraday, then I'll short it on that breakdown. But those are just the rules I've set for myself. You need to figure out what your rules are. The reason I set up these rules for me is I get hasty and I jump into things too early. I get too aggressive sometimes, and can be very detrimental to your portfolio. All right, and the big gainer on the day. This is not a daily gain. This is from Friday's closing price because the futures markets closed on Friday. You're talking 10.2% jump up for Bitcoin. And where is it at? It's right back up to that area of supply we drew out a couple of days ago. And by the way, just so everybody knows, I did not draw these lines today. Those lines were there before. So I'm looking at, we thought about a pullback, maybe coming back up to this 64,000 mark, and lo and behold, here we are. If this downtrend is in fact intact, that started back in March of this year, then we should not see it break above this. We should see it drift lower as this little diagonal line is pointing to right here. So I still think that 50,000 is definitely due. Remember, we still have that Mt. Gox Bitcoin being distributed. I think that's still going to be a big factor in the selling price. The good news for anybody who's a Bitcoin enthusiast is Trump basically said who his running mate will be, J.D. Vance, and it's pro-Bitcoin. So now you've got somebody in his corner who's pro-Bitcoin. You also have Trump, who is now saying that he is pro-Bitcoin. Obviously, Biden, anti-Bitcoin. So if you're a Bitcoin person and your only concern with the economy is crypto, hey, you're looking at the Trump ticket, right? That looks like a good thing right now. What was a catalyst today? It wasn't just today. Let me show you the charts here. We'll go to my cryptocurrency portfolio, bring up the old B to the T to the C. Margaret, you trying to get me to an hour show? Is that what your whole ploy was? It was already moving this weekend, but Saturday, you really saw the big move up. And I hate to say, it sounds horrible to say things like this, but I think it had to do with the assassination attempt on Trump, was part of it. I think that was definitely part of it because I think it became a rally cry for Trump. It was probably the best, the way Trump is, the type of person he is, he'll use this as a marketing piece. And it's great marketing for him. And I think it really will ultimately help his campaign. particularly with what we see going on with the Biden camp. Now, all of a sudden, I think many people look at this as, okay, this is definitely going to, at least for now, it looks like he will take it. If everything stays the same, then this shifted the odds of Trump kind of being reelected, or being, reelected the second time in November. Now, again, who knows what's going to happen? I am not on either side here, so I'm not making, political prognostications, but just I think the markets are pricing that in, saying Trump's been very pro-Bitcoin. Now he's got a VP who's going to be pro-Bitcoin as well. It could be great for cryptocurrency and digital assets. And on that front, yeah, I'm happy about that. That'd be fantastic. Now, I do think that this is still under a lot of pressure and could potentially see more downside movement. These are all my archaic drawings I did a long time ago, illustrating that I thought after the halving, we would see things drift lower. And we have. Since the halving, we've seen things drift lower, so I was right on that. We'll see if I'm right about my target, because I do believe that we'll still go down for, slightly down for another month or so. And maybe as we get into August and September, then things will really start to turn around. But this may actually be that beginning of the big start of a bull run. Notice that you are right in that overhead supply zone that we achieved back in July 1st. And there's also another supply zone at 42,243. So national polls are very close. All right. I could have sworn I heard that there was the separation was getting bigger and bigger between the two. I think what isn't close is the satisfaction rating that you and I have in our respective officials, regardless of which side of the aisle we're on. I think we're all pretty disappointed. We need some change. I thought Mt. Gox was done on Friday. I thought they were still, Mt. Gox releasing the Bitcoin may have been done on Friday, meaning the settlement and the account holders now have their Bitcoin back. I believe that is true, that as of Friday. But those people just didn't get it and instantly hit the sell button. Remember, they have to they'll get their Bitcoin, then they have to move it to an exchange and then liquidate it. So there still is that coming sale pressure, which, could happen any day now. Joe says, if Bitcoin drops to 50K, then buy that dip. I'm not a financial advisor, but I would say if your long-term thought process is similar to mine, which is at some point Bitcoin's going to be 100,000, a million. There's some analysts for a big firm, I think it was BlackRock or Goldman, said they think Bitcoin would be $1 billion a coin. I certainly hope so. That would make my day. But if you do think that down the road that Bitcoin's going to be $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, then buying at 50 would probably be a good point to buy into. That said, it could continue to go lower. I don't think it'll go much lower than 50,000, but you never know. It could happen. All right, and one last little piece here before I end up with a 1-hour show, and that is we talked about the potential for the hypothesis of rates getting cut this year might increase. Notice this has shifted. It was that we're going to see maybe 2 to 3 rate cuts, and they were both right around 40%. Now it's showing a 53% chance of 3 rate cuts by the end of the year. So the inflationary data is certainly helping the markets forecast more rate cuts by the end of the year. I certainly don't think we're going to get that number, though. I think it's funny. If you look back here a week ago, there was a 26% chance of 3 rate cuts. Now it's a 53%. So clearly the future traders are pricing in more rate cuts by the end of the year. And, of course, that's really driven by a lot of that economic data. All right. So that will do it for me for today. I hope you enjoyed having Larry on as a surprise guest. We do have some economic announcements and earnings announcements, so let me try to get through those, and I don't know if we'll be able to do it in the next minute. We do have retail sales numbers coming out. That's 1 hour before the markets open. You have import prices, business inventories, and the NAHB Housing Market Index, and that's your big stuff for the U.S. tomorrow. On the earnings calendar, it's getting better. There's some big names. Bank of America, United Health Group, you got Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, PNC Financial, State Street, JB Hunt Transportation, Interactive Brokers. Oh, man, some big names out there. So keep your eye on that earnings calendar. May create some opportunities. I'll be looking for, hopefully, some that get beaten down and just get crushed, and I'll end up buying something at a discount. Balashi is a beer from Aruba, I believe. I think it's a beer from Aruba. I'm in a beer shirt today. It's just what I felt like. I had a lot of beer this weekend, so I'll just continue the trend. Anyway, thanks, guys, so much. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit that like button. If you're new, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys on tomorrow's show. If you have something you want me to discuss, email me. It's on the screen, TraderMerlin@gmail.com. I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.